Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this month for Side by Side Digital. I'm your host, Rebecca Shively. We've got a great program lined up today. This month, we're talking about business planning and specifically how a solid plan can help set you up for success in the future. We've got a couple special guests on today. Brian Barrett is a business development officer that covers Wyoming, Nebraska, and parts of Kansas. He advises young and beginning producers on financials and business planning. Brian's going to walk us through the basics of a business plan. Then later, we'll be joined a bit by Alex and Paige Carlson. Alex and Paige farm in Phelps County, Nebraska, and they'll share a little bit about how they've successfully implemented business planning as part of their operation. But for now, let's kick it over to Brian to walk us through the basics when it comes to business planning. Brian, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Rebecca. I wanted to share a little bit about business plans. It's a topic that is talked about a lot in business, but isn't utilized a lot in agriculture. So we wanted to break it down a little bit for you about what is a business plan, how to use it, and primarily what are the parts of a business plan. So what I like to think about in what I share with my customers is the business plan, first of all, I think of as a roadmap for your operation. It helps you decide where you want to go and how you're going to get to that point. So it's something that really should be on paper so that you can reflect upon it and continue to update it as your operation grows and changes. But it's really a way to plan for growth and to keep you focused on what your goals are for the future of your operation. So as you can see on your screen, there's really 10 different parts of a business plan. And I don't say that to make it sound overwhelming, but I just wanted to clarify all of those, and we'll start going through those and talk about them a little bit from here. So first and foremost, your mission statement. We talk about defining your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's your goals? Why are you here risking, your family's future to do what you want to do? So some examples here that I've seen on some really good quality business plans that have been provided to me. I've seen some customers who their goal is to raise really high quality beef, whether that's directly to a consumer or it's sold through the packers and that sort of thing. I've seen a lot of producers talked about sustainably producing crops to feed the world and being stewards of the resources that they're at their disposal. Another thing that is important to a lot of producers when they're defining their mission statement is to build a family legacy, whether they're starting their operation from scratch or whether they're working into an established operation. But there's also that desire to provide opportunity for future generations. And the best thing about a mission statement is it's specific to you and your goals and why you're doing what you're doing. So the next step is your objectives. Those are your goals that'll lead you to fulfill your mission. Examples of this would be to build financial capacity to grow your operation. Maybe you have a target, maybe you want to farm 1,000 acres in your operation. That's great. That's your goal. Maybe it's to be recognized as the top producer in your area or to be recognized as a solid member of your community. Some producers want to generate a specific target profit per acre or per head within their operation. So those are all great objectives for the business plan. So the strategies are all related to your objectives. They're going to take one step further and define how you're going to achieve that goal. So if your objective is to build your financial capacity in order to grow your operation, how are you going to do that? It's probably going to involve marketing above your break even to build that financial position. You could be utilizing new technologies and staying up to date on those in order to produce above average yields. Another example could be to monitor your cost of production so that you understand when you have the opportunity to sell at a profit. The business overview allows you to provide some detail about your industry, your personal history, how you got started, what your education and your background is, maybe what your work experience would be, and what your vision is for the future. So what are you producing? Are you producing weaned calves that'll be sold into backgrounding lots? Or are you feeding your cattle out to fats? Do you produce corn and soybeans? Do you produce sugar beets and dry edible beans? Define what your operation will be doing and producing. Also, it's important to understand the facilities that you have at your disposal. That could include owned assets, for example, livestock, real estate, those sort of things, but it also includes facilities or land that may be leased. So, for example, if you lease a hog facility or something like that, understand what your operation has. And more than anything, what you want to do is you want to understand your competitive advantage, because in agriculture, we're producing commodity crops primarily. So what separates you and your business that's going to make it successful in the future? That's something that really is important for producers to understand as they develop their business plan. In regards to management, as I mentioned earlier, explain the ownership. What assets do you own within your operation, and what maybe there's some jointly owned assets with parents or family members. Outline that information so it's clear to the reader, but also to you as you work on your operation of what you have available. Define your management. Primarily for most producers, that's going to be a sole proprietorship. It's going to involve the family members, but maybe there are managers that provide resources that aren't on the farm themselves. Another thing to consider is your use of consultants, whether that's an agronomist, nutritionist, those sort of things, or your financial officer at your lender. But another thing to define is who your mentors are. Who do you look for to help guide you and help position you to be successful? Record keeping is another part of this. Define how you intend to keep your records so that you can understand your financial position within your operation. The SWOT analysis for me is one of my favorite parts of a business plan. It's the opportunity to really step back and critically think about your operation and your business. It's a little uncomfortable sometimes because you got to think about where your strengths are, which are pretty easy to define, whether that's the opportunity that you have with family members that are well established in their operations that can lend some support to you. But the really challenging one is to be vulnerable and identify your weaknesses. Where are you lacking? For many operations that are just getting started, that could be financial risk-bearing ability. So really critically think about those sort of things. Opportunities, we would consider something like a neighbor that may be retiring, or maybe you've got an eye on a piece of ground that will be up for sale in the near future that you'd like to pursue. And then threats, identify those threats that are external, that may change your operation, that you've got to have a plan for, but aren't immediately going to impact your operation. Your marketing plan, most lenders will talk at length about a marketing plan and making sure you have one. It's very important to get your marketing plan in writing in your business plan, because again, we're trying to clearly define our plan for growth and how you're going to stay focused in the future. So, for example, will you be forward marketing any of your commodities, whether that's utilizing hedging, puts and options, or just forward contracting with an elevator? And what is your goal as far as percentage of forward marketing if you choose to do that? What tools will you utilize to help you market? And then what alternative markets are there to consider? What we've seen a lot of in the last year with the pandemic would include direct consumer marketing of beef. So that would be an example as well. And how can that alternative market play into your marketing plan? Risk management plan is obviously very critical in agriculture. It's capital intensive industry, so you've got to manage that risk as much as possible. Will you utilize crop or livestock insurance? What levels and types of insurance will you carry? How will you mitigate weather-related risks? What will you do if there's a loss of rented land? If your land base is primarily rented, how will you adjust for that? Another one that a lot of people don't think about is, what if there's a change in management or labor? If you've got a sizable operation and you've got employees, what if a longtime key employee decides to leave or to retire? How is that going to impact your operation? You have a business continuity plan built around that, so that you can plan to make sure that your operation doesn't have any speed bumps on the road. Contingency plans is another uncomfortable part of a business plan. It's really understanding and outlining how you're going to adjust to changes in the market. As we've seen, the commodity markets have changed a lot during the past year. And then also your business plan and your financials are a look into the future, which we don't have all of the information for. So inevitably, there's going to be some assumptions that end up being incorrect. So how are you going to adjust to make sure that you can still achieve your goals if some of those things change? Additionally, the contingency plan should always have a plan B. So what happens if things don't work out as you planned originally? So for example, if you're going to direct market farm to table beef, and you can't, there's not as much market for that as you thought, how are you going to adjust to make sure that you're still profitable? Lastly on that, what is your exit plan? If your operation is not, if your business plan is not proving to be successful and your operation is struggling, you need to consider what you may do in order to exit if it gets to the point that you're not able to continue forward as planned. The financial plan, that's really just a summary of your current financial information, which is typically shared within this document. If you're sharing it with your lender, would include a balance sheet, your income and expense records, your tax returns, and your cash flow projections, anything like that that helps the reader understand what's going on. But again, the business plan primarily is for your benefit because you're defining your mission statement, your goals, and your objectives. But it can also be a great tool to share with your lender so that your lender understands those same things and can walk with you to help you achieve your goals. So this is something that should be updated periodically because your operation is going to grow and change throughout the years. So it's important to circle back to that to make sure that you're still focused on those goals. So Rebecca, I think that wraps up my part. So I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And just to remember, really great stuff. Remember, if you have questions for Brian or as we bring in Alex and Paige here, feel free to submit those through the Q&A. I realize there's kind of a lot of information there, so we will send this out after the webinar so you have a copy of it in case you want to really dig into some of these details. But really great overview of what a business plan is, why you might want to use it. And really what we wanted to talk about today is how this actually works in the real world. So we're really excited today. We're joined by Alex and Paige Carlson. So as I said before, Alex and Paige are in Phelps County, Nebraska, where they raise corn and soybeans. They also have a cattle operation. So they're going to visit with us a little bit today about how they actually use some of these aspects of a business plan to kind of help grow their operation. So I know Brian has some questions prepared for him, but definitely we want to hear from you in the audience. Feel free to submit those using the Q&A and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So Alex and Paige, welcome. Thanks for being with us. I'll let Brian kind of kick us off with the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you. Alex and Paige, again, as Rebecca said, thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to do this. Let's start with, can you tell us about your operation and your family? Tell us a little bit about what you've got going on.
Yeah, so we raise corn and soybeans in Phelps County. I'm third generation. Dad's still there every day, and grandfather's out pretty frequently. And we also run a stocker yearling operation as well.
Okay. And when did you start your operation? How long have you been operating?
Oh, I guess I started operating about freshman year of high school. They leased me a small piece of ground to get going and pay for college that way. So that's kind of when I first had my own management role per se.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what you have a business plan. It's a really well thought out business plan, really detailed and objective. So what prompted you to create the business plan for your operation?
Well, I'd say we were really involved in cash flows and making good plans to know we could succeed in the business. And it just seemed like that was kind of the natural next step to further our management workbook per se, and really figure out how to be an entrepreneur, not just a farmhand.
I really like that, to be an entrepreneur, not just a farmhand. That's great. So how did you, when you decided to start your business plan, what resources did you use to get started? How did you actually get rolling on that? Do you remember?
Well, actually, I think there was a template given by Farm Credit that really lined it all out. And I'm sure if we would have tried to do it on our own, we wouldn't have had all the categories you just talked about. You know, there's a lot there, and it takes a lot of thinking, and I'm sure we would have missed a category or two if we wouldn't have had that template.
Yeah. So did you have some help along the way as far as building that?
Oh, we just kind of really sat down with the template, and there was an outline with examples, and sat down, and it really did take some time. I bet we had, 8, 10, 12 hours in it, and kind of worked through it, and had it turned into Farm Credit, and they come back with some reviews and stuff we could improve on, and went from there.
Yeah. Did you share your business plan as you were building it with your family, since you're involved in a family operation? Did you share that with them?
I think they knew we were putting it together, but I suppose we didn't really share it with them till after the fact we were done with it.
Yeah, but they've seen it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Out of curiosity, did it prompt any discussions that you didn't anticipate?
Oh, not necessarily. They just think maybe it's a good idea to have stuff wrote down, and especially when it comes to marketing plan, that maybe hadn't been the strong suit for the older generations, and they were interested to see what we had come up with.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you're working through that, you said you had quite a few hours into it as you were building it. What part of it do you think was the hardest for you as you thought through it and how it related to your business?
Well, for me, it was probably the mission statement, sitting down, we're pretty young. We got hopefully a long time to operate. What do we want to accomplish in our 30 chances to raise a crop or whatever we got, So it's kind of take the big picture and really think through what we wanted to accomplish. And I hadn't thought of that much up until then. It was, what are we doing next year and the year after that, not 30 years down the road.
Yeah, it's one of those begin with the end in mind, and we all know what we want to do, but we don't necessarily always think about it in terms of a mission statement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Paige, what about you? What did you find the toughest in that?
There was a lot of parts of it that, like, again, it was good to have that outline to really think through each individual part of the business plan. I guess as far as marketing goes, I grew up on a ranch, very different operation. We had cow-calf. We did prairie hay in the summer. So just very different, and learning all of that since joining the operation has been interesting. I enjoy it. I went to school for ag, so I was, involved in it, but just learning, what does he even do on an everyday basis, and getting that all down on paper and trying to figure out exactly, what does our operation all entail. So I guess as a whole, the whole business plan or business planning was a really good opportunity for me too.
Yeah, I'm sure where you grew up on different types of operations, you each brought a different perspective to it that probably really complements each other pretty well, I'm guessing, right?
I would agree, yeah.
Seem to think so. Right?
Yeah, and I'm assuming, I guess I assumed this, but you guys worked on that together, or did one of you kind of work on it and then say, hey, what do you think of this?
We kind of worked on it together. She definitely did all the proofreading. I wasn't qualified for that. Other than that, it was a team effort.
Good. So now you've got your plan, your initial plan complete. You've got your feedback, and you've kind of got it finalized. So how have you been utilizing your business plan to guide your operation?
So at the end of the year, going through end of year financials and all that, we pull it back out and reflect on it. What we did that year, did it line up with our goals set forth in the business plan or not? And there's been instances it hasn't. And was that stray from the plan a good decision or a poor decision? And so far we can say they've been kind of good decisions, and then we edit it and go from there the next year.
Yeah, that sounds good. So if I'm hearing you right, you kind of use it as a check as you're seeing opportunities to make sure that maybe you're staying true to what your focus and your goal was. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. And some of the marketing has changed a little bit on the cattle side and stuff, and just to make sure that we're still, it all lines up to the mission statement. It just might be a different way to get there.
Yeah. So have you seen a change in, sorry about that feedback. Are you seeing a change in, you're updating your goals periodically as you review this. Are you seeing a change in your long-term goals from what you originally set out?
As far as like our expansion goals, we've come a long ways in reaching those. So we kind of keep setting that bar a little higher per se, and just maybe challenge ourselves a little bit and make sure we're still using our abilities the best we can to be the most efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've put a lot of focus in the marketing. I've heard that be a common theme for you guys. So how is your, you talk about utilizing your cash flow and then your business plan, updating that. How have you utilized your business plan to address your short-term goals and your marketing plan? I think you kind of commented that you circle back and see what worked and what didn't work. So how do you use that and refine that going forward?
Oh gosh, I just kind of keep going and make sure we're doing good practices that are going to be prosperous for us, and just make sure we keep working towards the mission statement, I guess.
Okay.
Being disciplined too, and knowing, especially like as prices have continued to rise, and just sticking to that marketing plan, and obviously making adjustments as needed, but just remaining disciplined and knowing that this is our plan, these are our goals. It might look like roses on the other side right now, but 10 years from now, is that what's going to be what our family and our operation needs?
Yeah, that's great. So during the years that you've been operating and since you put together your business plan, I'm sure there have been things, but have there been unexpected changes other than, like, for example, the commodity markets, but have there been unexpected things that you've had to adjust for in your business plan, whether that's maybe a change in land base or something like that, or an unforeseen opportunity to expand?
We have had some opportunities to expand that we kind of had planned for or hoped for at the time that we were working towards. And I'd say the management for not specifically our operation, but our family operation, I've stepped into more of a management role on the bigger scale of the whole thing. And that has in turn changed our operation considerably in terms of labor and that sort of thing.
Okay, excellent. So you may have already addressed this, but I'll ask it just to clarify. How often do you adjust your plan or revisit it?
I'd say we adjust it once a year and probably pull it out and look at it twice a year and 2 hours before we're supposed to talk about it.
That's fair. That's fair. What advice would you give other producers as they start to build their business plan?
It's pretty daunting to start with, there's no doubt about that, but just take the time and go through it well and put a lot of thought into it. I hastily put together, I don't think it'll do what it needs to do for your operation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think from my experience, if it's hastily put together, you're not critically thinking about your operation, and for example, on the SWOT analysis, you're not really thinking through that very well. It definitely shows when producers like you really think through that business plan. It shines. So how did you define your goals? Were your goals more around growth or financial position? Talk a little bit about that. How did you define your goals?
Well, I guess really our goals came from the previous generations, what they've been able to accomplish and the opportunities they've had afforded us in return for their accomplishments. So just to really continue that and just keep following the footsteps, kind of cliche, but that's really what we wanted to do.
Okay. Was there anything that helped you as you were building your marketing plan? I'd say it appears you guys are definitely probably top third as far as marketing and defining that. Is there anything that helped you with that? Did you is marketing come natural to you, or did you have to reach out to maybe some mentors or consultants to help with that?
We definitely have had some good consultants as far as risk management. It really came from a need of, I wanted to be successful at a young age, and we were how to plan on that so we didn't have any hiccups like it's faced agriculture a lot of the time. So I really did a lot of research and read on what has historically worked and what hasn't, and that might all be up in the air this year, but we're going to stick with it and keep going and try to continue that path.
Yeah, it's ongoing, that's for sure.
For sure, yes.
So now that you've got your plan in place, do your family members, since you're part of a family operation, do they get to weigh in on your plan, or for example your marketing plan, or have you demonstrated that, hey, I've got this covered, and they've turned that fully over to you and trust your guidance?
So yeah, a couple of years when Dad and I would compare grain checks or anything like that, he kind of maybe learned that maybe we can turn it over to him. So I have stepped into that marketing role for the whole operation. So
that's kind of fun to be able to do every once in a while, right?
Oh yeah. But he's probably got more left unsold this summer, and he's gonna have the last laugh, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I would say this year seems to be an anomaly, and hurts those that have a disciplined marketing plan. But again, we can't foresee the future, so we deal with it as we get information. So as you utilize your business plan and your goals and your objectives as far as growth, those sort of things, how do you bring on, as being the family dynamics of having older generations that are still actively involved, how do you bring them on board with some of those goals that you have set forth for the operation? Has that been relatively easy, or is it challenging? And if so, how do you go about that?
On certain things, they don't make a big enough hammer to get everybody aligned mentally on the forward plans of the operation. But it seems to be working. A lot of playing United Nations and trying to get everybody on the same page, and it definitely helps having a plan out there, and we can back it up with the successes we've had, that maybe we can carry some of our practices over throughout the whole operation.
Yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, it's always again, those family dynamics, sometimes it can be a little challenging for that generation to follow your lead sometimes. So can you give us an example of a change that you made that you felt confident about because you had done the work, done the planning in terms of running the numbers, and had it as part of your future vision? Do you have an example of that?
Oh, the one that first comes to mind would be changing our cattle marketing structure. Instead of finishing cattle out through a custom yard, because we didn't have the facilities to finish them ourselves, we were selling yearlings off of grass, and that has proved to be much better for the cash flow and overall financial health the last several years.
Yeah, that's a great example. Big change in marketing and timing of cash flow as far as that change goes, right?
For sure, yes. The cash flow is definitely impacted by that, not carrying those cattle another 5 to 6 months.
Yeah. So Paige, we've talked about, you came from a ranching operation. Have you had the opportunity to share, maybe some of what you and Alex are doing in your operation? Has any of that rubbed off, on your family, or are you able to share that sort of stuff?
That's a good question. So I have my ideas, in my head of, what could, my dad and my brother is now on the operation as well. What could they do? Because especially since really what we buy is what they sell. So, we're just that next step in the operation, or in the whole grand scheme of things. So I have my ideas, and it's hard when it's your dad and your older brother to really get too much of a say. But, I think Alex has built a really good relationship with my family as well. And, now my dad's got stalkers as well. So he kind of has tapped into a few other markets as well. And it's just, I mean, Alex is one that he's always thinking, he's always, kind of dreaming of, what's the next step? What can we do now that's going to get us ahead for the next years? And so I think, building that relationship with my family has been really good, and, kind of helped them realize, maybe this would be a good idea, just to, try on their operation as well. So I think just building that relationship has been really good for my family as well.
That's awesome. So one of the things I realized as you were talking about that I hadn't really thought about before, but it sounds like having that plan written out and detailed and a clear vision maybe make communication with family a little bit easier. Is that a fair assumption?
I would agree with that. Yes, that, we have deliberated on this and set forth our goals, and we have a plan, and we've done some research on it, not just some, young buck that come back from university thinks he's going to change everything up and make it 10 times better,
Yeah. That's really interesting. What type of things in your operation doing to determine how successful it is being and sticking to the business plan? So how do you decide if you're how I'm trying to think of how to phrase that. Are you pretty good at sticking with your business plan, and how are you making sure that you follow through and with that business plan and that focus?
I would say that our business plan is a roadmap, and we try to stick to it, but we're definitely not afraid to veer off and try something else and challenge ourselves. And, it's more of a general guide. It's not, law in our operation. And
Sure.
I think that's a pretty good way, because you got to be flexible. Everything changes every day, and we need to be able to make moves to anticipate or anything that black swans and that kind of sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you go ahead? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's a lot of calculated risk. That's kind of the name of the game. We just got to punch the numbers and, really figure out, does it make sense? Does it work? If not, then we forego it. So.
Okay, that makes sense. Stepping back a little bit about talking about the industry as a whole, how do you stay up to date with what's going on in the industry and keep up to date with new ideas?
Well, the internet's a pretty great place, and there's a couple ag forums. You can talk to other farmers from around the country and get a feel for what's going on, and multiple ag news outlets and that sort of thing. I try to stay out of the coffee shop talk, because that hasn't proved valuable at all in my experience anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So do you consider yourself pretty progressive in terms of adopting new technology and new tools?
Hesitantly progressive, I would say. It's got pencil in the black for sure, and then we'll give it a shot. But just because there's something in a farm magazine doesn't mean we're going to go out and have a capital outlay for it, unless we got a little more proof than that. So
yeah, absolutely. What do you think one of the biggest challenges is facing young producers right now, and how are you dealing with challenges as a whole?
The biggest challenge for young producers is especially in our neighborhood, is the competition for rented land, and just that land base is definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome as a young operation. And our family has been real gracious to us, and we got a pretty good stepping block from them, and we hope to continue and build it through purchases and rents, but land base would definitely be the hardest challenge.
Let's flip that question a little bit. What do you think? What are you the most optimistic about, and what do you think the biggest opportunities are for young producers that they can capitalize upon?
Technology coming down, especially in terms of labor saving technology, because labor would be another one of the bigger challenges for us right now, and most everybody in agriculture. So if we can capitalize on technology to reduce labor, I think that'd be a very important thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's very true. This question came in as far as if I want to get started putting together a business plan, where do I start? So I'll answer that one. So if you're watching this, you're obviously involved with Frontier Farm Credit or Farm Credit Services of America. So reach out to your financial officer or financial services officer, and they'd be able to get you in touch with us to get you that business plan template that Alex and Paige were talking about and give you some guidance on getting started. So we'd be happy to help you out with that. So what do you guys, is there anything we haven't talked about so far that you guys want to share in regards to business planning?
I guess not necessarily, just put some emphasis on it that 12 hours of business planning has an ROI that is very hardly measured, but it's a pretty substantial ROI, I believe.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, as we talk about goals and that sort of thing in the industry, you're a lot more likely to achieve those goals if they're written down, and in terms of an ROI, that's invaluable there. That's for sure. So go ahead. Were you going to say something, Alex? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go
Okay.
for it.
All right. So one of the things that we talked about in a business plan is kind of defining your competitive advantage. You maybe mentioned this, Alex, a little bit in terms of you come from you're the third generation, if I remember correctly, on the operation. So I would probably call that a competitive advantage. But just without getting too specific, do you think you have other competitive advantages that help set you apart from your peers when you talk about competition for land resources and that sort of thing?
Oh, advantage on the land resources. I don't think I have any more competitive advantage over anybody else because, well, probably a disadvantage that I do have my cost of production figured out to the acre, and I didn't rein myself back a little more when we go to bid on those rental properties, and that might be a disadvantage.
In the short term, it may look like a disadvantage, but probably in the long term, it's a good move. It keeps avoids some pain down the road, possibly, right?
I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a half-hearted joke of being a disadvantage.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we got to all the questions that were submitted. Really great discussion. Alex and Paige, I can't thank you enough for being with us today and sharing kind of how you actually use this on your operation in the real world. And maybe hopefully some other people might glean some little nuggets of ideas and things that they can implement back home. Like Brian said, if you are interested in getting started, your financial officer, financial services officer is a really great resource. Happy to help get that conversation going. So thank you again, Brian, Alex, Paige, for being here today. And thank you everyone in the audience for tuning in. We hope to see you next month. We'll be back on July 7th. We'll be talking about machinery and equipment. Always a good topic. You won't want to miss that one. So until then, take good care and we hope to see you online soon.